Two best things about a Tuesday. It's not Monday, and you get another episode of Hornets Daily. Welcome, everyone, to your one stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. As always, we're presented by the good people over at FanArc, and I'm your host, Vance Ballard. But you know by now, you can call me VB. I want to thank everybody for joining, watching along with us today. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and a comment down in the comments section. Always fun watching you guys interact down there, getting to interact with you down in the chat as we continue to build and grow this Hornets Daily family here on the show. Speaking of the show, got a couple pieces of information to discuss today, a few things buzzing around the Queen City on this lovely Tuesday in late July, as ESPN has given their offseason grades, and according to them, it seems the Hornets have done more than just scrape by with a passing grade. Brandon Miller is the new hot Hornet in the streets, his name being thrown around the interweb quite a bit this week. We'll discuss the young star and why he's getting so much mention. And it's starting to look more and more like there's not going to be a move made, a splashy big move made to address the big man problem in the offseason. And while that may be scary, I'll tell you a little bit about a positive spin and some interesting reasons why the front office may feel that way and have not made that big splashy move on the inside yet. We also know there are several questions surrounding the rookies, at least three of them, probably all four of them if you want to be realistic about it, but at least three of the four of them and their role within the Charlotte Hornets. There's some experts and some reports going around that makes it seem there's a few people who think they know what role at least one of these rookies is going to play coming into the regular season. We'll talk about that and flesh that out a little more as well. If there's anything you know about us here on Hornets Daily, we don't do beating around the bush. We like to dive headfirst into the program. That's exactly what we're going to do here today. We're going to go ahead, jump right in it. Kevin Pelton of ESPN.com has released his offseason grades for each team in the NBA up to this point, and he has given the Hornets a B-. Now, I wouldn't call that passing with flying colors by any means, but a B- is certainly something that can be taken with a positive outlook by the fan base, a fan base that has desperately needed something positive in the offseason to push them forwards towards hope and optimism in the regular season, and we know that this offseason has certainly provided that at a higher level than any offseason has in a long time, to be honest. So it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing to see the Hornets getting some love, receiving a B-, people noticing what Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson have done in the offseason to try and continue to change this culture here. Again, B-, not a grade the Hornets see a lot of in terms of their offseason moves or what they're doing to set up for the future. So it is positive to have that addition there. Pelton cited the addition of new playmakers and shooting depth around the whole young core as a reason for this grade. His exact description said the Hornets should be more competitive in 25 and 26. And now I think if you're watching this show, you've been following along with the moves made this offseason. That's a pretty obvious statement. We all know the Hornets are going to be more competitive, and we expect a little bit more than just more competitiveness out of them. But it's nice to see the bigwigs, the national news, if you want to call it, is giving the Hornets a little bit of love and noticing exactly what they're doing in the offseason. And we mentioned they haven't even addressed that big man problem in all reality. So a B- without addressing that issue speaks volumes, in my opinion, about the talent level that Peterson was able to bring in and the new additions he was able to make and the impact they could potentially have on this roster going forward. We know that shooting and playmaking have been at the top of the list all season or all summer long. Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson have made that very clear, and their moves have reflected it as well. It's been at the top of the list addressing those issues, and that's something that certainly has been addressed. One shooter and playmaker that the Hornets already know they have and don't really need addressing at his position is young superstar Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller's been quite popular on the internet as of late this week. I've seen his name pop up in several different locations. Zach Lowe specifically has been a big mentioner of Brandon Miller. He said on the Zach Lowe podcast yesterday, Monday, so over the weekend, he spoke about the Hornets as a whole and his interest with them, what he thinks the outcome for the regular season is going to look like in Charlotte. But then on Monday, he released his most intriguing players, and Brandon Miller's name popped up yet again on that list. Lowe had some pretty strong thoughts about the Hornets' young star. He said, "This team is going nowhere if Miller isn't an all-star." And he didn't just mean this year, he meant in the future for a long time if they can't get consistent all-star level play out of Brandon Miller. Zach Lowe feels that the Hornets are doomed to be a lottery team for a long time to come. He did express his excitement and interest in seeing Miller continue to develop, as he said he was very excited about seeing him play as a rookie, and unfortunate with the injury that occurred last year to cut a season short while Miller was playing very well. So he did say he's excited to continue to watch that development and doesn't necessarily doubt that Brandon Miller can be what the Hornets need, can play at that all-star level. So it's not like Zach Lowe was bashing Brandon Miller by any means. He wasn't saying that. He was just speaking to his level of importance within this organization, within this roster. He did say, again, that the Hornets would remain a bottom tier team without a successful Brandon Miller, without him having the impact that he was brought in to have realistically. Now, as we know, one thing about Brandon Miller, working towards that level of success, working towards being that all-star caliber player is not a problem for him. We know his work ethic has been raved about by many different people in many different places, and that has not changed. Brandon Miller himself sat down with Langston Wirtz Jr. of the Charlotte Observer to talk a little bit about his process, his determination, his work ethic to get him to the level he wants to be and his caliber of play. He also spoke about his wrist injury and the recovery process, how that's going, and gave some very interesting tidbits about his relationship with former Hornets legend Muggsy Bogues as well. Muggsy also had some very, very high praise about Brandon Miller. He said, "I see something special in Brandon," and, quote, "he's worked extremely hard to get where he is." Another comment about Brandon Miller's work ethic, something we're all familiar with as well, but it's nice to see former Hornets legends and stars taking notice as well of what the young star is able to do, what he is continuing to do in terms of work and development to get himself ready and back on the court. Brandon Miller also raved about Muggsy Bogues. They have a special relationship and have had one since Miller arrived here in the Queen City. Brandon talked about how special it's been to have the former Hornet great as a mentor and really guiding him through this transition into the NBA. We've mentioned that Miller hosted his basketball camp this past week. Muggsy Bogues was there not just in attendance, but he was also there as a helper, another coach to help guide these young ball players in Charlotte and help them to continue to develop their game as well. I can only imagine what it would feel like walking into a basketball camp not only run by Brandon Miller, but you look over and there's another former NBA star such as Muggsy Bogues that only continues to build the relationship that Brandon Miller has with the community of Charlotte. It only expands his level of like with the fan base. Again, just being around the community and showing that he's willing to give back and do things despite being in the middle of a very important wrist recovery. When asked about that wrist recovery, Brandon Miller gave a very, very positive answer. He said, quote, "It's probably around 90 to 95% healed," and he made it clear that he would be ready for the season to start, which is a big reason for everyone here in the Queen City to exhale and give a good sigh of relief, because we know that Miller, what his potential is on this team, we know what his capabilities are within the roster, and Zach Lowe has made it clear his level of importance to this team as well. Getting Brandon Miller back to 100% has got to be a top priority for this team. And I'm not just talking about come regular season game one. Keeping Brandon Miller healthy for the long run has got to be a top priority for the future of this organization as well. Now, that's an interesting transition as we mentioned the future. The Hornets, we know you've heard me do it over and over again. I've banged on the table. I've ranted. I've raved, and asked over and over for the Hornets to make a move to bring in a big man that we all feel like actually fixes the issues inside in the paint. As we know, the shooting, the playmaking seems to have been addressed on paper, but the big man is one position that the Hornets seem to still really be uncertain of from the outside looking in. But it is also, like I said earlier in the show, it's starting to seem like that there's not going to be a move made within the organization to bring in that big splashy center. It doesn't seem like they even can anymore at this point, to be honest, as moves have started to be made around the Hornets this late into June. They've yet to address the glaring issue in the paint. And again, it looks like they may not be doing that. I told you earlier, this kind of scares me to think about. I don't love necessarily that decision, but I've seen some positive uh, reasoning. I've seen some spin being put on this issue here that may make it a little bit easier to digest and understand why Charlotte has yet to go out and get a big man. A new era with the new regime, that means a new mindset, and so we're going to be a little bit more positive about this whole situation. Not making that move, not bringing in a big man, it really, in my opinion, can speak volumes for the level of trust that the Hornets have in Moussa Diabate and his abilities as an NBA big man. Someone in that building, someone close to this situation, has to see something in the Moose that has given them their own level of confidence within the organization to feel like they don't need to go out and immediately address this problem, as Debate can be that answer on the inside. As we know, he is the projected starter at the center position right now for the Hornets, and he did show a good bit of promise, a lot of upside to his game last season while he was on the floor. Again, nothing crazy numbers wise offensively. He's still got a lot of development left to do, just over 5 points a game in 17 and a half minutes last year, but you cannot deny his ability on the glass, both offensively and defensively. In his time on the floor, he finished top 20 in defensive rebounds and was sixth in the NBA in offensive rebounds. So crashing the glass, cleaning up the trash, grabbing the boards, however you want to describe it, whatever fun phrase you want to put on there. We already know that Musa can do that at an NBA level, and that won't be much of a problem. What is a bit of an issue, what does kind of scare me a little bit, is the size. Musa only 6'9". We know the Hornets kind of small on the inside anyway. The addition of Kalkbrenner added a little bit of size there, but he's a rookie with a lot of questions surrounding him. We don't really know what level of play we're going to get out of Kalkbrenner on the inside. So again, a much smaller inside presence for the Hornets if it is going to be Musa to get the start and to get most of the minutes there on the inside. But again, I don't know if that's an awful thing. I don't know if that immediately means that Musa is not going to be an NBA caliber big man. I think his length helps out a lot if he can continue to develop on the defensive end of the floor as well. That hasn't been much of a problem if he's only going to get better there. That could really increase his chances at truly solidifying himself as a starting center in the NBA. I think it's clear, it's starting to come more and more clear that the organization itself feels that he has at least earned the chance to try and be this starting center for the Charlotte Hornets. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but it does at least give a little bit more positive reinforcement and explain a little bit more about why the Hornets have not gone out of their way to try to bring in a big man when we know acquiring talent wasn't the issue. Peterson stacked up a laundry list of guards and wings throughout this summer. But maybe the trust in Musa, maybe that is why the Hornets haven't decided to go out and address the big man issue. They may not feel that they have as much of a big man issue as the rest of us out here within the fan base and on the outside looking in do. So if there's any positive thing that you can take, if there's any less scary spin zone maybe you want to put on the situation of having not brought in a big man yet, maybe that's why. Maybe the Hornets on the inside see something in Musa Dibate that is going to propel him forwards into becoming the answer at the center position within the Hornets organization. I'm not sure. It's still going to be fun to watch and see his role develop within the franchise for sure. Speaking of roles within the franchise, I mentioned that the rookies, three of the four of them, have a lot of questions surrounding their role. Khan still kind of has some questions, but we know he, whether it be starting or coming off the bench, we know he's going to have an impact in minutes. He's going to get on the floor early. We know that's why Knipple was drafted where he was drafted. But the other three, those are the ones with the larger looming questions, the ones surrounding them, more confusion overall about how they're going to fit into this team. Sion James is specifically who we're going to be discussing today. We're all aware about his defensive ability and the reasons that he was drafted where he was drafted, his on ball skills, and his ability. But there's some reports going around that seem to think they may know a little bit more about Sion's actual role within the team and how much of an impact he can play right from the jump early on this season. We've said it a few times on the show here that the defensive side of the floor is going to be what gets Sion James off the bench and into the game early on in the regular season. But Sam Vecini of the Game Theory podcast, he seems to think that it's going to be a little more than just coming in and playing in some spots defensively. He thinks that Sion James is going to propel himself to up somewhere around 700, maybe more minutes for the Hornets during his rookie season. If that's something that can happen, if he can do that positively, then I'm all the way here for it. As many impacts, especially on defense, as the Hornets can get, that's what they need. His own, specifically Sion's on-ball ability, is what may get him on the floor early and often in the regular season. A larger role, it may come a little bit more by force as opposed to choice. Again, a lot of additions have been made within that backcourt and the wing position this summer for Charlotte, but it's not necessarily like they stacked up a lot of great defenders. There's questions looming about Colin Sexton's defensive ability. We know Spencer Dinwiddie is a little bit older, kind of getting up there in age. How is he going to be in terms of defending twos and threes? So Sion James could easily carve himself out a hefty role in this organization, in this on this roster, within this rotation during the regular season, if he can be the on-ball, impactful defender that he was drafted and brought in to be, which I don't think there's going to be much of an issue there. It's just going to be more about getting his feel for the NBA game, the speed that it comes with, and knowing exactly what it's going to take to be that on-ball defender in the NBA. He definitely possesses the ability to. Now it's just going to be more about his confidence level and how he feels going out there and doing it. Now, if he's good enough if he's good enough already to show the Hornets that, and he continues to get better on the defensive end, there's no reason why he won't find himself on the floor very, very often. I'm not saying he's going to move into the starting lineup because I don't think he's here to take Brandon Miller's position by any means, or even Colin Sexton at the two, whoever it may be. I'm not sure Sion James is ready to slip into that starting role yet, or even that's even why he was brought in. But it does appear that the team feels like on the defensive end, at the very least, he's going to make a huge impact and carve out a larger amount of minutes than originally expected when he was drafted. If this is the case, we know that Sion is more than capable of holding his own on the offensive end as well. Shouldn't be much of a downturn or a downtick. Shouldn't be much of a drop off when he does come off the bench offensively, as we know he's a good shooter. He's a fantastic playmaker, makes really good decisions with the ball, doesn't turn it over a lot, and his playmaking ability has also been talked about as reasons why the Hornets went out and drafted him in the second round. Again, that's going to be a very, very intriguing thing to watch throughout the season as we continue to progress here. What role is Sion James and the rest of the rookies going to play? But it does seem now that a little more information from people on the inside are starting to leak out and come out about why Sion or what role Sion James could actually fill here with this Hornets organization. That's going to be something to keep an eye on as we continue to move into the offseason. And that's going to wrap up today's show as well. As a matter of fact, going to be interesting to watch all of these storylines unfold as we move into the regular season. We'll be here with you the whole time on Hornets Daily to walk you through it all, take you down into the depths of information here in Charlotte. I want to thank everybody, as always, for watching along with us. I'm Vance Ballard. Be sure, leave a like and a comment. Smash that subscribe button down on the page here, and we'll see you right back tomorrow with another episode of